In pharmaceutical manufacturing, paperwork is the product, but there is a constant recurring error that traps even experienced teams, mixing up a daily standard operating procedure with a specific validation protocol. Consider a common scenario. You need to validate a brand new mixing tank. An operator steps in and uses the standard daily equipment cleaning SOP to run the validation. The physical cleaning might be perfect, but the documentation fails. Because the operator followed a routine checklist, the form is entirely missing the exact verification data an auditor needs to prove the equipment is actually safe for production. This diagram shows their structural difference. On the left, an SOP is a continuous loop for routine, identical daily tasks. On the right, a protocol is a discrete, linear sequence with specific data collection nodes like swabbing coordinates and residue limits to prove effectiveness. To execute a study correctly, a specific cleaning validation protocol must be planned and approved before anyone touches the equipment. Substituting a routine checklist for a targeted study strips away your proof of effectiveness, invalidating the equipment and jeopardizing baseline GMP compliance. Another frequent error happens with document permanence. Teams will try stacking a process validation protocol straight into their permanent daily batch records. Validations require intense, high-volume data sampling. Locking that level of scrutiny into a permanent daily loop generates overwhelming amounts of unreviewed data, which guarantees process deviations and immediate audit findings. This timeline illustrates a validation study's lifecycle. The protocol begins with a clear objective, runs through finite execution phases, and stops at a rigid closure barrier. Here, raw data compiles into a single final report, completely separate from the endless SOP loop. The sequence dictates the outcome. You execute the protocol, compile the results, and close out the study. Only after the validation is proven successful do you update the daily SOP for routine use. Treating a temporary validation like an infinite daily operation removes the final verification layer, leaving you with piles of unreviewed data that will fail audit scrutiny. So, if you need to perform routine equipment sampling every single morning, what document do you use? Because this is a permanent, repeating activity, you use an SOP. But consider what happens during a trial when something goes wrong. An operator gets an unexpected result during a validation run, and instead of following the study's specific rules, they default to their daily SOP to log the error. Handling a validation anomaly with routine daily instructions bypasses the scientific controls of the trial, invalidates the entire study, and places your product quality at direct regulatory risk. This flowchart shows deviation handling. Path A uses an SOP for routine error correction. Path B's protocol anomaly triggers a hard stop and an isolated investigation loop, requiring root cause analysis, impact assessment, and QA verification before generating the final report. When a deviation occurs during a study, it must be isolated entirely within the framework of the protocol, complete with formal QA sign-off. Applying routine problem-solving logic to specific validation exceptions destroys the integrity of the study and compromises your product's safety. Look at these documents side by side. You have the dense, finalized process validation protocol sitting right next to the streamlined, ongoing equipment cleaning SOP. This diagram illustrates how they interlock. The rigid, temporary protocol establishes the baseline safety standard, while the continuous SOP circles it, maintaining that standard day after day to form a complete GMP compliance shield. The rule to remember is straightforward. SOPs are fixed, routine, and permanent, while protocols are planned, specific, and temporary. Managing documentation backlogs and ensuring your team knows the difference takes immense effort. If your facility needs support with SOP drafting, protocol compilation, or comprehensive GMP training, I can help your team secure those systems. True audit readiness ultimately depends on the precise alignment of your documentation with the specific